Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about something that I think we all are just craving and wanting, and, really, maybe that's just why you're here on the Confident Woman Podcast. But are you craving unshakable confidence and wanting to just know that no matter what happens in life, you are still so firm and so rooted and so grounded in who you are as the confident woman that you can withstand the test of time, right? So like no matter what's coming at you, this storm is pulling you left, it's right, trying to uproot you, you have this solid, firm, unshakable confidence to your core. And that is what I want to talk about today. So building confidence obviously takes time and effort, but let me just tell you, it is 1,000,000,000% worth it. So, as somebody who has really struggled, again, I've been very open about some of the struggles that I've endured, from just really feeling down on myself and not having that self-confidence or self-esteem. That was something that I wish that I had more of in my younger life to kind of have the leg time to develop it and cultivate it and create more of it and have this. I wish I could say that I had a kick-ass, confident journey, but the truth is I didn't. And I don't think otherwise of that. Like, without my journey, I wouldn't have the story. I wouldn't have this platform. I wouldn't have the things that I have in my life right now. So as much as we could sit there and say like, oh, I wish this never happened, or I wish I had, or, all these wishes, right? But the beauty of it is, if we had wish on everything that would be so perfect, which it doesn't exist, then, really, what is the meaning of life? Because if everything was just, blasé and perfect all the time, life would be pretty dang boring, to be honest with you. And that's the beautiful thing about, confidence is about being resilient. It's about those times when you get knocked down or when you were feeling less than, or when you had to swim upstream kind of thing, and you build that esteem because you can look back now at your track history of being like, wow, I've overcome so much. I can and I will be able to succeed in the things that I'm trying to achieve, right? I don't know about you. That's something I pump myself up. And to be honest, it's not all the time, because there'll be times I'd counter that same statement with like, ooh, but, and then I fill in the blanks. So if that's you, tune in, listen. I just want to spit off a few quick tips that have really helped me to feel that these are anchors that, when my self-doubt tries to creep back in, my inner self will speak over it because it knows the difference between truth and lie. And self-doubt is a liar. It will always tell you things that you are not, that it will always keep you stuck. It'll pull you down. And to be honest, sometimes that is needed because we need to also know where we can go. There's a difference. And so how do we create more of this unshakable confidence or confidence in general? So this is, I just want to spit off a few of my tips, but I want to take them a little bit deeper into it as I kind of go down my list here of things I wanted to share with you, because these are kind of, I think anchors is what I was sharing, anchors into my own self-confidence journey. So one, focusing on your strengths and accomplishments, right? So I kind of just mentioned that about when you look back at your through line, your history of what you've been able to overcome and achieve and survive and thrive and all those things, let's not discount that. Because when we find ourselves in an area of self-doubt and confusion and overwhelm, that means we haven't yet experienced it. So our brains are just scrambling for some sort of evidence. And if it doesn't have evidence and it doesn't have an experience to pull from, self-doubt will tell you all the things, right? Because it has nothing to feed off of. And so when we focus on those strengths and accomplishment, we're actually taking the time to reflect on the things that we have succeeded, the things that got us to where we're at, the strengths that overcame or empowered us to overcome the challenges in our lives. And we're able to recognize then, like, our unique gifts, our unique qualities. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us, capable of overcoming and doing the things, because then we get to celebrate those achievements. And I know that celebrate can feel sometimes a little bit icky, because you're like, well, aren't I supposed to? Like, why am I celebrating myself or just managing to get through today's life, right? We should celebrate those things, because this is something that I think as we navigate life, we need to pause and celebrate even the small stuff. It's not always about the big wins. It's not always about those things that are the movers and the shakers in your life, because sometimes it's about just getting yourself out of bed. Celebrate that moment. It's hard. There's days that are just dang hard. And then there's days where you jump out of bed because you're so lit, you're so passionate about what you got on your agenda or the things that light you up for that day, the people who you're going to see, right? Those celebratory moments should be in your everyday life. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be small, but give yourself props for getting through the day, doing the things that light you up, doing the things that just sometimes you don't want to do. But each little thing that you don't want to do moves the needle closer to where you want to be, the things that you want to achieve, but more importantly, it's reinforcing the person you're becoming. So that's a beautiful gift that you get to give yourself. So if you're trying to figure out like, well, I don't even know my strengths, well, that's something, again, as a personal journey, you have to tap into that. If you're not sure what those strengths are, ask those that are closest to you, like very close, not the ones that are critical and the judgmental ones that are going to say, well, but those that are just your friends to say, oh my gosh, do you not see the goodness that I see in you? Because we don't always see that, right? So finding your right people, those that are also there to support you and encourage you and empower you to really find who you are and being that strong, capable, confident, badass woman that you truly are to the core. Because that confidence has been in you this entire time. It's just sometimes life tries to snuff out that little spark. And sometimes we just need to be around other people who have a spark that can ignite ours, and our flame grows, brighter inside. Secondly, I want to talk about the practice of positive self-talk. That's something, like I said, we can let self-doubt creep in. And when we give any attention to self-doubt, guess what it does? It pipes up in the most obnoxious and obtrusive ways that will always tell you you're not capable, you're not equipped, you're not qualified, you're not ready, you're not whatever, right? So when we start reframing and flipping the narrative script, we start replacing that negative self-talk with positive self-talk. And what happens then, right? All we're doing is reframing that language. And when we start speaking positive thoughts and words over ourselves, guess what? Our bodies respond. The action starts moving forward and being mindful in that way that you are speaking about yourself. So if we can, replace self-doubt and negative thoughts with those affirmations and positive self-talk, what else could be possible, right? How about, I think when we're looking at it from our perspective and how we treat and speak to other people, and we want to encourage them, right? If a friend comes to you and you're like, and she says, I'm really struggling with this X, Y, and Z, and I don't think I can, and, right? She's going to fill in the rest of her justification for that thought. But you being a friend on the other side are probably looking at her with a little bit of a sideways look, and you're like, wait a minute, do you see the incredible, beautiful individual that is inside you that is so powerful of being this amazing woman, right? Would you not have this conversation with her, your bestie? Well, then I challenge you to say the same thing to you. Speak to yourself in the mirror, speak to yourself in a journal, however you got to do this. Remind yourself of your worth, of your capabilities, and the value that you bring to the world. It's not about what that self-doubt says, because she couldn't even imagine what's in front of her because she has yet to experience it. So it's up to you, being the master of that mind. You can go back in through your history and say, dang, I've accomplished a lot. I'm strong. I am capable. And you know what? Doesn't matter what happens. I'm worth it. Because your value is not determined about what you achieve or what you do. Your inherent worth is just by being you. And that's the beautiful gift that you get to give to this world and to yourself. So, moving on, we talk about surrounding yourself with supportive people. When we can seek out relationships with, one, ourselves, we're able to uplift and support ourselves in those areas that feel like they're big and daunting. And it's hard to tackle something when you feel like, oh, it's just me and my self doubt in this dark room. And I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. Right. So again, that feels like it's so overwhelming. But when you are in a place, in an environment that, have supportive people, and you have these, deep, meaningful relationships now because you've done the inner work and you're looking to develop more of that and you're, ready for more, then that's where you get to surround those people that truly believe in you and they encourage you to grow and expand, and vice versa. You don't know the power that you have on their own potential and vice versa on that. So, you know, again, relationships are a two-way street. It's about giving, it's about receiving, it's about being present, it's about, really tapping in and being compassionate. So, the way that we treat ourselves in that relationship, that healthy, loving, nurturing, kind, generous relationship that we get to gift ourselves. Now, think of that as it pours out in abundance to others as well. So, that again is having that supportive system so you can really make the difference and impact in the world. And you really get to develop that confidence, right? So when we're on this path, guess what happens? We consistently show up, and consistency breeds confidence. So another one that really helps me is stepping out of my comfort zone and facing my fears. So I encourage you to do the same because really that's where growth happens. The moment that we step outside of our comfort zones, we're faced with challenges to try new things. We have to take on new opportunities. We're facing new people. We're facing our fears. We're looking at our fears head on and we're just like, whoa, that big scary fear that I thought was the worst thing that could possibly happen, all of a sudden now becomes illuminate. And you turn around and you're looking at fear like, oh, yeah, it's a big and scary after all. Like, in fact, why did I run from you? Why did I avoid you? Why was I running from fear? Because fear will always chase you. Fear is what's going to catch up on you and try to, nip at your heels and trip you up. But when you have that positive mindset and you're speaking words of encouragement, you're surrounding yourself with other people, and you realize now, like, you've already accomplished so much in your life that fear has no bearing on this. So each time we take that small step forward, we're taking a step outside of that comfort zone. And in that comfort zone is where growth happens. That's where we get to contribute to our overall, contributions to this world. We contribute to the growth and potential for others to see what is possible for them as well. And there's so much more to it. But, one of the things that I do want to mention here is like a caveat is when we step outside of our comfort zone and we begin to face those fears, I want to make this very clear because this is something I personally had encountered and it tripped me up, like kind of bad. Pretty much I like bruised knees and scrapes and all over myself because it was like, ooh, dang, I had a fall to realize that. This is what I want you to take away from this little section here is conforming or stepping out of your comfort zone. Make sure you're not jeopardizing or losing pieces of yourself to fit in to the expectations, norms, pressures, and demands of what others want or expect of you. So there's that sense of like growing pains, but then when it becomes straight up painful, like, no, that is not who I am. There's a difference. There's a difference of stretching and a little bit of discomfort, but when it becomes straight up painful, that means you're expanding, you're trying to force an identity that is not created for you. It's like you're stepping into somebody else's calling and shoes that aren't meant for yours to fill. So be mindful of that, but do challenge yourself to grow because growth should feel discomfort. It should feel uncomfortable. But when it's painful, back out. Check in with yourself and ask why that feels so challenging and so hard. Because that resistance that you're meeting isn't necessarily meant for you to push through. It's also there for you as a reminder. It says, whoa, hold up. What are we doing here? So checking in with yourself, which leads me in to my next tip, which is taking care of yourself. So remembering to prioritize your self-care, your health and well-being, taking care of beyond. And so well, actually beyond the physical, right? So we look at it as like, well, how am I showing up? What am I doing? How do I feel? What what is the next thing I can do? And we can ask ourselves that because it's very important. But I want to take this concept that has been something that has been true and near and dear to myself as a way of living. And this is something that I hold as my fit from within philosophy. And, from somebody who struggled with body image and self image and all those things, I was somebody who chased perfection from an external perspective. I thought that if everything from the outside was perfect, nobody could see the mess and the pain and the hurt and the struggles that I was facing on the inside. And so when I looked at health and wellness and fitness as a whole, I realized now that I was inadvertently trying to only push for my physical. Well, then I thought it would breed that mental peace, emotional, comfort, and spiritually sound. I feel like, wow, okay, now I'm making some progress and some strides. And I obviously have learned from that. And that's why I've adopted and adapted my own fit from within philosophy, which brings in the methodology of physical becomes the byproduct of your inner fitness. And that is your mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well being. So, yes, taking care of our physical is important. That's our body, making sure like the exterior is well kept. While internally, we need to check in with our mind. How are we? Are we in a space that feels like we can manage, right? Or how are we emotionally? Do we feel stifled or pained or depressed or anxious, right? Checking and asking ourselves. And then of course spiritually, right? So we are a soul. There's this the spark inside of us. We are spiritual beings living a human life. And when we can identify that and fully step into, okay, it's beyond this human experience. What does my soul need? What are we craving? What are we longing for? What are we here for, right? So those are things that I check in with myself, and I call it, obviously fit from within, but I look at it as like my 4 tires to carry out this mission in this purpose here on earth for whatever time that I'm gifted that isn't taken for granted. And so taking care of yourself really does employ you and empower you to bring more joy into your life, engage in those activities that really light you up, that feel like they're filling your buckets, all 4 of those. We're practicing self-care so that it becomes kind of our anchor. And that could be something as simple as a daily routine or healthy habits, right? So that's all part of this practice, because practice is exactly that. You're showing up each day. You're giving it your all, whatever that might be. Some days it might be like 10%. That's great. Give 100% of that 10%. So other days it might be 100%. Great. You got 100% of that 100%. But when you start checking in with yourself, you're taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So it gives us ways to really nourish our body, mind, and soul. And so one of the things that I love, and part of my own methodology here is that I love to create a healthy body, a positive mindset, and a soul filled with self love and gratitude. And that is my personal practice, which please adopt, whatever you got to do. If that feels like it resonates with you, please take it. Gifting it. That's something I gifted myself, and it's a beautiful thing. And then lastly, I'd love for you to really reflect on your journey. Your journey is so unique to your own. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning of this episode, is that, all the things that I could have wished were different in my life, I'm so, so, so grateful and blessed to have experienced the darkest of the darkness, the depths of the deepest parts. Because without that, I wouldn't be able to experience the highs of the most high, the excitement, the joys, the love, all that stuff. So when you can go very deep, you can also go very high. And that's a beautiful gift, because this is part of the journey. And, when we look at the journey, it's not necessarily the journey, the destination that we're trying to achieve. Because to be honest, how many times have you set a goal and then what happens? We got another goal, right? So that marker is always going to be moved in front of us. But if we don't take the time to truly enjoy and embrace this journey that got us to those next mile markers, well, what are we here for? Just chasing, striving? No, we're here to actually learn. We're here to grow. We're here to do much more than what it is that we think that is very self-generating, And so again, embracing the journey, because when we can look back at that through line, we look at now the consistent work that had led us to where we're at. And as I said, consistency compounds over time, yields results. And what is the result that we're actually after? To feel that inner boost of self-confidence, to know that we're building something that we're able to stand upon and it can sustain the test of time. Because even though when we get knocked down, we still have that deep-rooted sense of self-confidence and belief in our own worth, in our own abilities, in our own achievements, in our own versions of success. So look back at the through line. And so, like I was sharing, building self-confidence is obviously not the destination, but it is the journey itself. So being patient with yourselves throughout this whole thing. Oh my goodness, please be kind. You will mess up, you will fall, you will fumble, and all those things, right? But it's a beautiful gift. Pick yourself back up, and continue navigating your journey, focusing on the progress and the process. But don't ever discount those small wins, because those are the things that we need to celebrate every step of the way. So celebrating small wins, we get to remember that confidence is something that we're reinforcing and redefining, and we're becoming each day that we get to give ourselves that gift. So confidence comes from within, and that also stems from that philosophy of fit from within. So how are we showing up for ourselves? And everything that we do and want and create and aspire and everything, it all starts from within. So when we're chasing the external to fill an internal void or belonging, we got to ask ourselves why and check in with ourselves. So remember that, building unshakable confidence, it really does take time and effort. It takes a lot of grace and gratitude and practice, but more importantly, being consistent. As I shared, consistency compounded over time yields results in everything you do. You want to lose that weight? How are we showing up consistently? Are we doing the work to get there? We want to aspire to grow our businesses. How are we consistently showing up in those areas? So the same is true for our confidence. If we want to build that esteem, confidently show up and consistently practice self-love and gratitude. And it will get you there. It truly will. And I share that because this was exactly the steps and the things that I took to go from my pit, I call it my shit pit, and that's what had boosted me up and out of it. And I share this as my own way to help possibly give that gift to you if this is applicable. So if you're looking for, that supportive community of like-minded women on the journey to building unshakable confidence, then I invite you to join the Confident Woman Collective. It's a space where we uplift, inspire, encourage, and empower each other. And together we can navigate life's ups and downs. We can be there to support each other. And we're doing that and building our confidence along the way. Because at the end of the day, we aspire to absolutely create a life that we love, right? Why are we living this life if we're not feeling the sense of contentment, joy, peace, love, compassion, empathy, kindness, gentleness, generosity, all these things, right? That's all within. And so I challenge you to dig deep, go within, and start creating these steps for you. So until next time, appreciate you. I love all of you guys that are listening. This is just such a beautiful way for me to connect and share my heart. So if this resonates with you, please let me know. Shoot me a DM, come into the Confident Woman community group. But if this is something you're like, I need more in my life, again, I invite you to check out Confident Woman Collective. So until next time, take care.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.